All right, everybody, we're live, and it's time again for the Mindstate Marketing Hour with our favorite author, Will Leach. He's the author of Marketing to Mind States, the practical guide to applying behavior design to research and marketing. Will, welcome to the show.
Steve, thank you for having me on again. This is going to be a fun one. Since it's Halloween, we're going Halloween theme today.
You got the Batman t-shirt. Do you have the Batman underwear?
I cannot confirm nor deny that I have Batman underwear on right now.
So the Mindstate Marketing Hour is how to use science to connect with your clients. And it's by that excellent book, Marketing Mind States, by our best buddy wearing his Batman suit today, Will Leach. And the Mind State Marketing Blueprint offers a framework to identify emotions to connect with your clients. And so last week, I really enjoyed our conversation. We talked about the need to move past user experience, customer experience, towards HX, human experience. And we talked about designing popsicle moments. Mm-hmm. And as usual, in every episode, we come up with a really good golden nugget. The one I'm still hanging on and using and have ripped off as being human is a competitive advantage. But this week, we want to talk about, you've picked a subject off from a book called The Alter Ego Effect, The Power of Secret Identities That Transform Your Life by Todd Herman, not to be confused with Todd Human.
That's right. Before we begin, Steve, I have a question for you. You ready?
Yes.
All right. What do Bo Jackson, Beyonce, Kobe Bryant, Garth Brooks, and Will Leach, the man in front of you, all have in common?
They got moves? I didn't know you were such a great dancer, Will.
Well, actually, I thought you were going to go that we're all great-looking people. So you go that way. But we all know that Garth Brooks isn't very good-looking, right? So I know we're going to go in that direction. Actually, what it is that we have played around with this idea of an alter ego. And that's why I'm wearing my Batman shirt today. It's not only just because Halloween's coming up soon, but it's all about alter egos and how people use alter egos, especially entertainers and sports and incredible CEOs use alter egos to become kind of their better selves, to maximize their output, all these good things. So that's what we're talking about today, superheroes and alter egos.
I don't know if I'm buying it, Will. You're telling me that all these people that I've admired or I've seen perform, they have an alter ego, and so they're not really the person I thought they were?
Bo Jackson. You know Bo Jackson, right?
Yeah, Bo Jackson.
Said, of course, Bo Jackson. For you guys who don't know Bo Jackson is, you could make the argument as the greatest athlete to ever live, right? Mm-hmm. But he played professional at the all-star level of baseball and football. And he once said that Bo Jackson never played a down in football in his life. But Jason Voorhees, the guy from all the Friday the 13th movies, we grew up fearful of Friday the 13th. He said Jason Voorhees played in his place for every football game he ever played. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So that you are correct that there are some people that we've known forever that at their essence, they're not who they portray to be on stage.
So am I picking it up right that at everyone's core is a superhero or idealized self that we're pursuing?
Yes. We've talked about this for a long time. It's a big premise in our book, Marketing to Mind States. But, we go through a journey in life, and that journey takes us through every hour, every day, every week, every year. But we're always moving. We're always progressing forward. And for the most part, we are always trying to reach a better version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's why we decide, to eat healthy for breakfast. That's why we decide to set goals for ourselves after a year. So we're constantly moving towards this idealized self. And in my world, that's called goals. It's your goal. And every time you reach a goal, you are one step closer to being that idealized superhero that we all have inside.
Your higher order goal? Is that what you're,
exactly right.
So when I was looking up the book on Amazon, and they usually suggest another book, that people who bought this book also bought this book. And Atomic Habits is one of the books that it recommend. And I don't know if you've read that one, but one of my takeaways from that book was when you can change the way that you see yourself, it makes it easier for you to step into a new habit. And so it makes sense to me that an alter ego would help you. It creates an image in your brain that immediately your brain can pick up emotion and much more information from looking at this alter ego.
That's exactly right. I think that book talks a lot about that. And what's interesting about it is it's not just a theoretical exercise. Like, the author has made a company surrounded by this idea. I mean, he's worked with stars and major athletes because, it's kind of like an actor. I look at it as, most actors embody their character after a while. Now that can get kind of crazy. Did you ever see Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey, the documentary on him? And so Jim Carrey was for his role in Man on the Moon, when he was trying to become
Andy Kaufman,
he wouldn't break character. And it really, really messed with him because for a year he was this character. And the Man on the Moon documentary talks about what it did to Jim Carrey, the person. It actually gets kind of towards the end. You're like, this isn't good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so it can be overdone, right? Same thing with Jared Leto with the Joker movie. Remember when he started like sending dead animals to the other actors, and it kind of freaked people out because he really wanted to get into the character. Because you're right, when you embody a character, you could switch that character on and you personify that character. Now, sometimes it's the bad sides, right, with the Joker. But what if your character, the one you personify, gets you to a higher level you, a very easy way to get you to act, to think, to do the same behaviors that, your favorite superhero would do. And if you can do that, great things can come out of it.
That's interesting. We had the question whether you were wearing Batman underwear or not. And so Eric Leach popped in and said, you do. All right. So let's get back to the show here.
Good.
So these alter egos step in. That's funny. But it's true.
Yep.
When you can start to become this aspirational identity, it helps you move to a place that, what I've really struggled with, you watch these actors, or they're all called actors now, but when like they'll shave their head during the movie, or you'll see them in all sorts of different roles. Russell Crowe's fat in this one, he's super skinny in that one. Yeah. And then you contrast it with the person that you've seen all your life that struggled to keep the same mullet haircut, even though they're balding, or, there's two very contrasting personalities, and one that's struggling to stay exactly the same they've always been, and one that's like, there's some freedom in maybe seeing yourself different. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about here.
I think so. When I'm reading the book, I was thinking about all the times where you lack confidence. And there could be lots of real reasons for that. Sometimes, we've all struggled with the idea of the imposter syndrome. And if you're not familiar out there with the imposter syndrome, it's this concept that sometimes even like presidents of countries and things, like people believe that, oh my gosh, I'm really an imposter at heart. And nobody really knows that I'm not really capable of taking on this position. So they say a lot of executives fear with the imposter syndrome. Or, we talk about VUCA environments. And in the book, we talk about environments that are volatile, they're uncertain, they're chaotic or complex, they're ambiguous. So when you're in an environment where it's a lot of complexity, you feel like sometimes I'm not enough. I can't figure this out. And so you lose confidence. Or have you ever been in a meeting where you've been harshly criticized, or there's unfair expectations? And there's lots of things in life, Steve, that make us feel like we don't have confidence and we're incapable of doing something that we know deep down we probably can do, but we lack the confidence. So yeah, certainly you could go and do therapy. And I'm actually a proponent of therapy. That's awesome. And you could take days and years to do therapy to gain your big confidence. Or you create the alter ego, an alter ego that has the ability to take on a VUCA environment, to take on the harsh criticism, and that you can embody that alter ego. And for that period of time, you have all the confidence in the world because you're not really you. you're the alter ego. And there's science behind that. The brain, it's very difficult for the brain to differentiate between imagined experiences and real experiences. That's why when you're doing all these virtual reality environments, when you feel as if, consciously, that you're not really stepping off of a cliff, but your brain can't distinguish between a virtual environment and a real environment. It's the same idea. Is if your brain can't really differentiate between a virtual self and the real self, it'll go to the one that feels most meaningful at that point in time. And that could also be the virtual, or I'm sorry, the alter ego.
When I was in heavy sales time back in a past life, I don't remember where I learned this, but there was a way that you can see yourself separate from your different roles that you play during the day. So if you think about, in the same manner of you have different states of mind during the day, you actually play different roles during the day. So you're Steve the son, you're Steve the salesperson, you're Steve the husband, you're Steve the father. You're playing these different roles. And one of them was Steve the salesman. And either that day you did really well, okay, you really killed it that day, or you really didn't kill it that day, right? But to let that impact how you saw yourself in the other roles is dysfunctional or not healthy. And so to be able to separate it and go, today as a husband, I did a really good job, right, honey? Well, today as a salesperson, I did a really good job, right, honey? So that was a way for me to start to not let those things bleed over. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. In fact, even in the book, it talks about this idea. We talk about harsh criticisms. So one way, if you're starting something brand new and you're unsure about what you're doing, you're trying to find your way, you're trying to navigate your way through a situation. Criticism can knock you on your butt to make you feel, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, what the book talks about is that if you're being criticized, but it's your alter ego, well, you can always, it's almost a defense mechanism. In fact, therapy even does that on purpose, where your body makes a defense mechanism. It's your alter ego. So you don't take on that criticism. You're like, well, it's Sasha Fierce that was criticized on stage, not me. Mm-hmm. So it's also, it not only is it kind of what you said, is it's very much a way of focusing on certain roles, but it's actually a defense mechanism. So again, you maintain your confidence. It's almost like I kind of term it up almost as like, it's the ultimate fake it till you make it, right? Mm-hmm. It gives you the ability to fake it until you have that confidence, you have that skill to where you're the very best at what you do.
So what's your alter ego?
So I will tell you, my alter ego started when I first started my brand. And you'll actually appreciate this, because every brand, you want to try to talk to the person who's creating your brand logo. And I was coming up with a persona, and I used archetypes. So I used 2 archetypes, which was sage and warrior. So the sage is kind of that smart archetype. And then the warrior was a battler. And I was, at the time, I was like, I want to change marketing, because I thought marketing was not going in the right direction.
You're right.
I'm going to do it through science. So I was sage warrior for many, many years. I kept thinking in my mind, I'm sage warrior, sage warrior. That actually evolved. It's a weird story. I'll tell you about it if you want to right now. It happened last year, where I changed my alter ego to Gandalf the Grey. Yeah. And it's an awkward story, but it's just you and I here. We can talk to my brother, right?
Come on, share it. No one's going to know.
So here's what it was. I was at a conference and I was speaking to about 2,000 people. It was at the CTA conference, Call to Action. It was from Unbounce. And I show up the day before to do a mic check. And all those other speakers are very, very young. Now I'm a young man. I'm a young man.
Yeah, look at you.
Young.
I'm wearing Batman underwear, Batman shirt. Right. Only young people wear that stuff.
That's right. So I go to this dinner with all the speakers, and I sat down, and they were talking about things I'd never heard about. Like
what, TikTok, Tinder?
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. Exactly. I didn't know what that stuff was like. So I remember I was having this conversation with this guy, and I was trying to use his language, and I could tell he was being very respectful to me, but I know he knew that I knew not a thing about what he was talking about. And he walked away, and I knew I was embarrassed. I remember I untucked my shirt and I rolled up my sleeves. I was trying to be kind of cool, right? And then this girl comes over and she sits down next to me, and another speaker, and she goes, I am so fascinated about what you do. Like, tell me about what you do. And she kept asking me, tell me. And she was so interested in me. And I remember to myself, I said, you know what? She doesn't see me as being young. She doesn't want to see me as being this young, hip, whatever. She wants me to be kind of the sage, like the sage. That's why and there was another person behind her that came up too. And they were so impressed with me, but not being young. They saw me as I am, which was, I started thinking Gandalf, like Gandalf leads, Gandalf smart. He knows things other people don't know. And so I literally walked out of that restaurant thinking, Will, stop untucking your shirt. Stop trying to become this young, cool CTA conference thing, and just do what I do well, which is Gandalf. So just in the last year, in my mind, I think Gandalf the Grey. When I don't feel like I'm ready, I go, whoa, Gandalf. Think about Gandalf the Grey. So that I've never told anybody. I don't think even my wife knows that. So Eric and Steve now know that Gandalf the Grey is my new alter ego when I'm not feeling myself.
So for those old people that are listening and we don't know who Gandalf is, where's Gandalf from?
That's right, from the Lord of the Rings trilogy books.
Okay.
And he is a wizard, the old wise wizard, but he kicks ass, right? He fights dragons with his staff, so he's kind of like a warrior too. Yeah. He's not just the one that sits at the top of the castle. He's a warrior. So Gandalf the Grey is that sage warrior. He gets in the mud with the hobbits, and he leads the hobbits to Middle Earth, all through Middle Earth.
Well, that's cool.
Yep.
So don't ask me what my alter ego is.
Do you have one yet?
No, I've always had one.
Yeah?
Yeah, so mine's Iron Man, but mine's not the Robert Downey Iron Man. Mine's the old school Ozzy Osbourne Iron Man.
No.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's like you got to go through all these tough things. You got to go through that VUCA. VUCA. Yeah. I think it rhymed with VUCA, the environments that I went through. But like, you got to be able to go through them and take all the stuff that you don't deserve or you feel like you don't deserve, and still just keep on trucking and don't take it personally. So
yeah, amen.
Yeah. So what are like 5 steps to kind of land on our alter ego?
Okay, so there is a 5-step plan. I've taken some out of the book. I'm staking some of the stuff that I know from behavioral psychology. But the very first thing that you have to do is, I liked actually how you said the roles, because you can't try to create an alter ego for every role that you have. Like the alter ego I have as being a dad is a very different alter ego than I am as an entrepreneur, than I am as somebody who goes to church, etc. So you have to define a role and just do one, guys. Don't try to figure out for every role. Just experiment with one. So the first thing you got to do is, and in this case, let's talk about career, because that's most of you guys are thinking about career right now. So think about your career and what is a specific career or business. If you own a business, what is a specific career goal that you have with outcomes? It's important to have the specific outcomes. So you could say certainly your goal is to be a highly profitable consulting agency. Great. Define what that means. And you don't have to go too crazy on it, but get 2 to 3 key outcomes that you want to look for, because it's going to be important for the next step. So you got to be very specific. Write it down on a sheet of paper.
Okay. And then what would be the next?
The next thing you do is, actually, I learned it as a term called backcasting. But the idea is this, that, and the term backcasting came from when John F. Kennedy said that we will be on the moon in a decade. What the term backcasting was that an entire group of brilliant scientists came together, and rather than saying, what are all the things we have to do to make sure that we will be in the moon in a decade, they went, if we're going to be on the moon in a decade, what has to happen between years 9 and year 10? And then after that, then they define all those things. And then they go, now, when we're in year 9, what all has to happen in year 8 to make sure that we can reach year 9? And so it's called backcasting. But the idea is this: if you can think about and define exactly what your goals are, think about and write them on a list. What are the specific traits of somebody that they would have if they were to reach that goal? What skills would that person have? Not you. It doesn't matter about you. It matters about what that person would have to have. What attitudes would they have to have? What beliefs would they have to have? What values would they have to have for them to reach those outcomes? So imagine that person. Hopefully it's you, but it doesn't have to be you. It can be anybody, but just list out the traits. So it could be something as simple as perseverance. It could be highly intelligent. It could be go get attitude. It can be a loving person. Whatever those attitudes and those traits are, list them all out, and you all want them on the same sheet of paper. Because I think what you're going to do is you're going to be able to look at those all at one time to get us into kind of that next step. So list them out. Be very, very specific at this point.
All right. So we're building the back casting there.
That's right.
So next we have to put some bones around this, right?
That's right. So this is where you're going to choose or create an alter ego who has these characteristics. So the first thing, let's talk about choosing an alter ego. So you can look at an alter ego. I was lucky enough, and you were lucky enough that you chose an alter ego that already existed, right? It was through fiction, or for you it was a song. For me, it was through fictional and a movie. But there are sometimes, if you look at that list of all the skills and all the traits and all the things that you should have to reach that goal, sometimes things will just come to mind. A character will come to mind, and that character can be real. So you can look at real people, real actors right now, maybe political people. It can be family members that have all those traits. They can be fictional. So they can be from movies, books, historical figures. It could be, Teddy Roosevelt, all that, anything. They can actually be animals. And if you think about Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant was Black Mamba. And there is a portion of Black Mamba, which is a fictional character. So for those of you who don't know, Kobe Bryant, Hall of Fame basketball players for the Lakers, he needed to create an alter ego that kind of separated his family life from his court life, a basketball court life. So what he did was he came up with this persona, the Black Mamba, and he got that from two things: Kill Bill movies, where one of the assassins was called Black Mamba, and then the second one was the Black Mamba snake, and that ferocious, never back down, will strike, will not pass the ball. And so he actually created that persona to kind of keep criticism and keep his mind focused on the court being very different than his home life. And so he used an animal plus a fictional character to come up with that persona or that alter ego, Black Mamba. Or you can even be machine. And in a way, there are elements where, you could think cybernetic, whatever, or anything that comes to mind that you feel matches directly back to those traits. So you can choose something that already exists, and you got to have emotional connection to that. We'll talk about that. But the second thing is, for some people, it just doesn't match. So think of Beyonce Knowles. So her background, not like a biographer, but she came from a very religious background. She learned to sing in church choirs. But her passion was dancing and kind of more, traditional, up-to-date hip-hop music, whatever. And she struggled with that. She struggled with the dance moves. She didn't know, I don't think I feel comfortable up on stage wearing these outfits. So what did she do? She created an alter ego, Sasha Fierce. And the idea is that she used the word fierce because she wanted to just own the stage, have no lack of confidence. So she used this alter ego. She designed it. She created herself to come up with Sasha Fierce. Now, I don't know where Sasha came from. It could have come from a friend of hers. It could have come from anything. But Fierce was made because she wanted to be fierce on stage and have no regrets on stage and on with the music that she created. So in those cases, and the book tells you how to create your own alter ego. So choose one that you already know, like Bo Jackson did with Jason Voorhees, or you create your own like Garth Brooks did when he came up with Chris Gaines. Remember that weird thing he did like a couple of decades ago where he just created this new album with Chris Gaines? He had black. It was really with his black hair, right? Well, I mean, I don't know exactly. I didn't do an interview with him, but that's an example of an alter ego. He wanted to express himself in a different way. He needed to get away from Garth Brooks, probably mentally, because he created a pop album, right? Through the Chris Gaines persona or the alter ego. So he created that alter ego. Beyonce created her alter ego, and you can create your alter ego as well.
That's interesting. We all struggle with these things, and we need to see ourselves different, and we need to see us on a path. One other, if you ask me who my hero is, it's Ernest Shackleton. So
Oh gosh, you got to tell that story. Yeah.
yeah, so back in at the beginning
Okay.
of World War One, he had done this long process where it's an amazing story how he got his crew together and he got a boat together. He had been on trying to get to the South Pole with Scott, and they almost died, and so he left that and said, "I'm going to do it myself." But long story short, they go down to the South Pole, get frozen in, and it get frozen to ice. And they were there, I don't know, 9 months, a year or
Yeah.
something. And then the ice crushed their boat. And all the men had to get off and camp on this floating ice. And then it started to melt, and they had to get in these little bitty boats. And then they had to do this incredible sailing journey. And it was like, it was a miracle that they were able to find the little bitty island in the worst seas ever.
Mhm.
And they got there. Then they had to go on another long journey in one boat to go get help.
To go get help. Yeah. It's an amazing story of perseverance. Like whatever you're suffering through right now, we're not suffering right now. Shackleton suffered. I totally read that. It was an amazing story of a guy who has such perseverance and belief in himself and belief that there's a destiny for him. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I also loved was how he led his men. Not one man died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, not one man died. And contrast that with a similar expedition that went awry in the North Pole, and there was like mutiny, and there was cannibalism, and there was murder, and people disappeared. That's what could have happened. That was what was on the line. And yet he got them all home safely. Not one man died. And so I thought, that's such a great example of leadership and persistence. And he had a quote, family quote motto was like, through persistence we endure, or through endurance we persist, or something. I'm messing it up, but that's really resonated with me, and it goes with the Iron Man thing too.
I love it. I love that story. It's a great one.
So we have to give our alter ego a name.
You do, because that name, the thing is you're not going to carry around like this big sheet of paper with all these different traits and things. You're going to look at them, and then you're not going to sit there and go, well, who do I want to be today? Like, it has to be a name that automatically hits. So Bo Jackson used the name, and it was Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th. So here's the deal with Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson, again, arguably the greatest athlete of at least our generations. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't control his temper in high school. He was getting a lot of trouble. And no matter what he did, he couldn't control it. But then he saw a Friday the 13th movie. And Jason Voorhees, if you know about him, no emotion. And he will never stop. He always kills those teenagers, right? He always gets them.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's the dumb teenagers, right? Always gets them. And so he looked at that, and he would take on that persona, Jason Voorhees. And when he named Jason Voorhees, that's when he said, Bo Jackson never ran a down on football. Jason Voorhees did. And just that idea of the name Jason Voorhees flipped his personality. So he didn't get a lot of penalties. He took the emotion out of the game. He was just one singularly focused person, which was, his world, getting first downs, winning and success. So you got to name it. And that name has to be very specific, like Black Mamba, or Gandalf the Grey, or Iron Man.
So then how do we engage this alter ego and get out of our little I feel sorry for myself ego? That's
right. So one of the things that you got to remember is that you don't want to use the alter ego every day, or you become like we talked about Jared Leto or Jim Carrey. Like, you use your alter ego in moments. And I in the book, he talks about these moments. He has lots of different models, so I won't go into that. But there are these moments. And so, in that moment, and I'll give you a great example. I speak on stage, and so I'm naturally a bit introverted. I don't necessarily, if I talk outside of what I do, Mindstate Marketing, I don't do well. I don't like the stage. I don't like the limelight or anything else. So when you need your alter ego to come in, when you don't feel like yourself, you don't feel like you're confident, that's when you go to trigger one of this alter ego. So the first way to do it is what he calls a totem. And a totem is a physical object that you place on your body that epitomizes that whole thing. So he goes in, he gives a story about an entrepreneur, a lady who bought shoes from Oprah Winfrey. not directly from her, but through some, I don't know, through some sort of a charity or whatever. And she said when she needed to feel passionate and confident, she would wear Oprah Winfrey's shoes. Her shoes were an example of a totem, or a totem could be your favorite jacket. Now, do you have like a favorite jacket that you really want to, that's like your go-to jacket when you want to impress somebody? Like I have mine.
Yeah, I had to get rid of it after high school, though.
What do you do? You got to put those up. You have to put those up in the at least in the attic. You can't get rid of those. The Letterman jacket. You get rid of the Letterman jacket.
I put it on the other day, but I've changed sizes a little bit. It's a little tight around not here. It wasn't tight around here. It was tight around.
Not around the chest.
It didn't bring back my persona back then. That's for sure.
No, your confidence went down. We got to build you an alter ego now. So a totem is a physical object, like a rock or something that when it's on you, you have the characteristics of that person. So that's what the lady does with Oprah Winfrey's shoes. So it could be something, a piece of clothing, a rock, something that when it's on you, you're that alter ego. The second thing you can do is a ritual. And this is more just from kind of behavioral psychology space, is that there are certain rituals you can do to activate it. You can do it with a mind state. So certainly you can activate an alternate ego. So it could be something like 3 claps or something that's very specific, but that action of your body hitting your, 3 claps, or, when some people throw up their hands up in a V, or if you remember Shazam, saying a word, an action, something like that, that's ownable for you, that means that alter ego has to take over. That will also kind of bring you into that mindset. So it's a ritual, a physical, moving your body in a certain way, but it has to be specific, or words, a chant, something like that only that you can use in those times. So are you a friend are you a fan of the Super Friends? Do you remember the Super Friends?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember there's this one character? My brother would totally know this character. There's this one character. He was the Native American. His name was Apache Chief. Do you remember? He was not on very many episodes, but he was Apache Chief.
No, I don't remember that one. I'm sorry. I ruined the episode.
His power was that when he would say a certain word, he would grow to 50 feet tall. That was his power, right? That was his superpower. And I remember as a kid, and the 40 years later, maybe 45 years later, I still remember the word. And the word was Inachok. Inachok. And when he would say that word, he would grow 50 feet.
Yeah.
So that was a great example of a chant, something like that even to this day. So my brother would beat me up pretty good.
I can see why.
I would get angry. And you're a little kid and you're being picked on. I'd go, Chuck, and it would make me not fear him anymore. I'd run after him. He knew to run from me when I did that, because he knew I was all out, because that gave me the powers of Apache Chief. So that's an example. Lord, did I know that back when I was in sixth grade or 5th grade, that I was actually creating an alter ego called Apache Chief to help me keep my brother from picking on me.
Well, I hear that a lot of professional athletes use this process to really communicate to their brain. Now's the time to get down to business. And so they can get out of the anxiety. They can get out of the stage fright. They can get out of that worry and get really dialed in and focused. And so they'll do these processes. And basically, it's helping you imagine yourself in a place where you're very competent and you're in your element. And so there's a way to communicate to the brain, hey, we're changing gears now, and this is my zone of expertise.
And that's exactly what that book is really focused on. I mean, Todd Herman, he's a sports psychologist, but that's how he uses it. But he started looking at it. That's right. He knew it. He used to fear me when I would do that. He would fear me back then. So that's exactly right. That's what. And so I wonder, as you're talking, Rafael Nadal, he has if you watch him play tennis, he has a very specific ritual by every serve, by the way. He gets himself into trouble because he loses time and he gets penalized for it. But if he doesn't do this ritual where he touches his head a certain way or whatever, he's off his game. Or I was thinking about LeBron James, when he does kind of the whole, when he throws up the baby powder, I wonder if that's it, right? There's a ritual that the old LeBron James is gone once the powder hits the sky, and now it's time to focus in on what I'm supposed to do. So I wonder, in fact, I'm sure it is. Now I think about it, I'm sure that's a ritual that puts that person in the moment of pure focus. They're not going to think about anything else outside of that game.
Well, it's also a component of branding, personal branding. And so it's a way to garner the attention and focus away from the people that you're competing. It's a very powerful way to start to drive and compete. So that's pretty cool to think about it. Your brain, again, you have that old part of the brain, your bodyguard, that doesn't process language, but it can process a feeling. And it's a way to go, okay, brain, now's the time to get down to business and really, really do this. So if you have a meeting that's coming up and you're really concerned about it, you've heard about where you can stand and breathe and really take the space, kind of spread your legs a little bit and hold your arms out and claim your space in a power position. That's a version of that. You're breathing and you're helping your brain go, okay, I'm changing gears and I'm not trying to hide, and I'm really confident in this situation.
Yeah. No, there's tons of science and studies behind everything you're just saying right now. So, hopefully I'm hoping that anybody who's watching this, one, is a believer in behavioral science, but secondly, that this isn't just pseudoscience. This stuff has been proven to really help, at least. And so if you're at a point where you may feel like, you have some imposter syndrome or the world's too complex, like we said, you can certainly go to therapy. Okay. Or it can just help you in the short term is build a alter ego to help you get through these moments when you just aren't so sure of yourself. And by all accounts, if it works for some of the greatest athletes and greatest, CEOs and actors of our world, why wouldn't it work for you?
I think this is like the flip side of the coin of your book. When you think about the states of mind that people are in when they're evaluating your product or service, then you could actually start to create your messaging to communicate to that identity that they assume in that moment, right? So if I'm an achiever and I'm going to do this regardless, but I would like to avoid mistakes and I'm looking for, then you can design that persona and think about what state of mind they're in. Okay, I'm just going to get this done regardless. But all right, let's think about that. It's kind of Iron Man-y, but I'm going to really do some research and figure out the best strategy to navigate this. So you could really start to relate with the mind states that people are approaching you in.
No, I love it. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, if you want to drive real empathy, that's a great way to do it. So it becomes very natural to you to embody your customer persona, right? I love it.
So do you have an example where maybe this was applied in some business application that you worked with that maybe they had a challenge, and then how did that work out? Did it crash and burn this like the worst idea ever? Or it's like,
yeah, well, you put me on the spot. So I don't know. I will tell you that I've heard from countless high-level executives who say that, before board meetings or whatever, that they deal with this imposter syndrome, that they feel like they're not totally prepared and that they struggle, and it'll cost you your career. So I've seen the side where you don't do something. And it can certainly, if you're in front of a board of directors, it's one bad meeting. It's one bad meeting, Steve, and then you're off. Like that's how the board has to do that sometimes. So I've seen that side happen. I don't know outside of athletes and outside of actors or people in the entertainment space that do this. Now, that's because I mean, how many CEOs would do that? Would tell you that they do this? Not many. He alludes actually in the book to executives, but he never names them by name. But he kind of alludes that this is a very useful thing for people to do. So I don't know of one that comes to me outside of myself, right? And the example is, maybe the CTA conference. At my last huge conference I was at in person, just before I go on stage, I do my ritual. I throw my fist down 3 times. Go. I say trigger, boom, and then get on stage, right? And something just happens about 5 seconds before I go on that I'm in this moment of only talking about mind states. Now, when I come off the stage, I'm exhausted. Like I use so much energy, mental focus, stuff like that. I come off exhausted. People want to talk to me. I'm blurry eyed, and it's hard for me to focus on what they're saying because mentally it's hard for me to get through all that. But I guess I may be one of the only, or what the example that comes up to mind where I can shift my focus, become an alter ego, become Gandalf the Grey up on stage. And then I go back to Will, who just wants to go have a Five Guys burger by himself right off afterwards to celebrate,
Well, I think that it's smart because if I'm going to step into an interview, if I'm going to step into a sales call, I'm going to step into a presentation, I can just go in and whatever mood I'm in, let that happen. But it seems like it would be smart and be wise to go, all right, I'm going to realign my energies here before I walk in here to increase my opportunities of success.
Yeah, be deliberate in it. So I like that idea. Rather than, I think the book talks about when you don't feel confident, but you can make the case that when for the big moments in life, do this, whether you're confident or not, right? Because like you said, if you had a bad morning, then you don't want that energy to come into your meeting, right? Or if you or if you're kind of a little bit depressed for something totally outside of business, you don't want that coming in on your day and your meetings. That's a great idea of using it. It's a great way of using it.
Yeah. Well, this has been an excellent conversation, Will. I appreciate this idea of bringing in a book. I love books, and they always bring us these unique perspectives that maybe we didn't consider.
Yep.
And improving our human experience here on the Mindstate Marketing Hour. So, Will, people that want to learn more about what you do, you have a framework that helps clients identify these. What other options do they have?
Yeah. So we have a couple of things that we do at mindstategroup.com. Ultimately, my job is to equip marketers, brand planners, brand managers on how to use the latest in behavioral psychology and neuroscience to get marketing that gets people to think and listen and care and act ultimately. So there's a lot of behavioral sciences in this stuff. So on my website, you can purchase packages here pretty soon where you can buy a workbook as well as my book. Pretty soon we're going to come up with a Mindstate Masterclass. And what we do right now is Mindstate Marketing Workshops. We have one happening in about 2 weeks where you can spend 2 days with me and some other great companies from all over the world actually who come to these workshops to go through the process of understanding 4 specific factors that influence all customers across all types of marketing, and then use data that I have. We go through activities to show you how to use it in your own business. And on day 2, which is really fun, is we actually go through advertising together, your advertising. So if you get picked, you and I will go through advertising together in real time to then help you craft your message, change your message just slightly to use the most advanced behavioral sciences to get kind of the best return for your dollar. So if you want to learn more about those workshops, it's at mindstategroup.com.
Yeah, that's excellent. These are live workshops. Will's going to show up and he's going to have his Batman shirt on, or he's going to have something.
Maybe some underwear. Yeah. Maybe some Batman underwear, maybe.
Yeah. So be sure to get Will's book. I highly recommend it. I read this book and I really loved it. That was before I even knew Will. And here we're working with Will and helping him set up these workshops, etc. Right. And in that book, you're going to learn how to use science to connect with your clients. This has been another great Mindstate Marketing Hour. So, Will, any last little nuggets of wisdom you want to impart with?
Right now, think about alter egos, get ready for Halloween, be good people out there, vote, all those great things. And we'll probably just go ahead and see you next week.
All right. Thanks, folks. And be sure to look for us next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. I guess you're going to have to wear the same bat shirt. Just wash it. Okay. Will?
I'll wash it for you.
All right. Thanks, Will. And that's a wrap.
Thanks.